welcome to this very special episode of Frankly Speaking, the budget special. And as always, I have Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman joining me. And congratulations, Nirmala Sitharaman ji. 7th consecutive budget by a lady who's been a finance minister. That's a record, and that's the glass ceiling that you've broken. Congratulations. Does it feel any different this year than it did in the previous years?
No, not at all.
Nothing different?
Thank you very much.
No pressure?
No, every year budget till it gets passed in the parliament is a task which you have to go through, and each year has been a learning experience.
लेकिन इस बार तो कॉन्वर्सेशन जो सोशल मीडिया पे थी वो थी कि 240 वाला बजट है, ये 303 वाला बजट नहीं है. सोशल मीडिया थोड़ा देखा बजट प्रेजेंटेशन के बाद?
ये विषय नहीं देखा, देखती हूँ, मगर इसको मैंने कहीं देखा नहीं है. मगर उसमें एक गलती है, वो ये है कि नंबर जो भी हो पार्लियामेंट में आपके सीट, देश के लिए जब बजट बनाते हैं, तैयार करते हैं, उसमें जिम्मेदारी चाहे 302 हो या 241 हो, जिम्मेदारी वही है, क्योंकि देश के लिए बना रही हो बजट. सो उसमें प्रधानमंत्री जी का गाइडेंस और उसमें देश के लिए जो विजन हमने वोट ऑन अकाउंट बजट में दिए, उसको जोड़ करके आगे ले जाना और विकसित भारत के लिए एक मार्गदर्शन देने वाले बजट तैयार करने में उसका अपने ही स्थान है.
लेकिन मैं आपको कुछ मीम्स दिखाती हूँ. ये कांग्रेस पार्टी आजकल सबसे ज्यादा मीम करती है, और इस मीम में कांग्रेस पार्टी ने लिखा कट कॉपी पेस्ट बजट, कुर्सी बचाओ बजट, क्योंकि बहुत सी चीजें बजट में ऐसी थी जो उन्हें लगा आपने उनके मैनिफेस्टो से उठाई है. यहां तो पहली नौकरी पक्की वाला जो उनका मैनिफेस्टो का था वो भी उन्होंने ट्वीट किया है और कहा है अ गुरु इज ऑलवेज अ गुरु. तो क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी गुरु है और बीजेपी चेला है?
मैं इसमें अगर सही जवाब देना है तो एक रिस्क है. वो रिस्क है कि तुरंत लोग इसका हाँ देखा फिनेंस मिनिस्टर कितने अरेगेंस के साथ जवाब दे दिया. ये जवाब और ये रिस्पॉन्स जनता या कुछ लोगों से आ सकते हैं. मैं सिर्फ ये बहुत ही विनम्रता से सबमिट करना चाहती हूं. कांग्रेस पार्टी का स्कीम घोषणा करना और उसको इंप्लीमेंट करने में हर तरह का एक्सक्यूज देना, ये नया बात नहीं है. मैं एक बार पार्लियामेंट में ये स्पष्ट की है कि हमारी स्कीम है, उसका श्रेय हमें नहीं दे रही हो, ये आरोप आता रहता है कांग्रेस से. स्कीम घोषणा करना एक विषय, उसको इंप्लीमेंट सही तरीके से करना दूसरा है, जो क्षमता कांग्रेस पार्टी में नहीं है. घोषणा करते हैं, मनरेगा के विषय में बार बार बोलते हैं ये हमारी स्कीम है, आधार के विषय में बोलते हैं हम ही ले आए, मगर सीएजी के द्वारा जो रिपोर्ट आया मनरेगा उनके कार्यकाल में कितना घोटाले गपलेबाजी सब हुआ, मगर उसी मनरेगा को सही तरीके से बिना उसमें कुछ शक डायरेक्ट बेनिफिट ट्रांसफर के द्वारा अच्छा सा इंप्लीमेंट करने वाले प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी है. सो करते जाओ घोषणा.
पर ये तो घोषणा नहीं, ये तो मैनिफेस्टो.
नहीं, वो घोषणा के विषय में मैं इंप्लीमेंट करो स्कीम, मगर गलत तरीके से इंप्लीमेंट. ये तो हो रही है जो प्रॉमिस कर्नाटका के उदाहरण लीजिए ना, चुनाव के समय में दिया फ्रीबीज इतने सारे, और इंप्लीमेंट करने के लिए जब जाते हैं उनके सीएम के एडवाइजरी बोलते हैं हम इसका फाइनेंस कर नहीं पा रहे, अगर इसको करना है तो डेवलपमेंट एक्टिविटीज के लिए मेरे पास पैसा नहीं होगा. डिप्टी सीएम भी वही कहे, एडवाइजर भी वही कहे. सो कांग्रेस का मैं ये कर्नाटका के उदाहरण दे रही हूं. और दूसरा ये भी कह रही हूं इतने सारे अच्छा घोषणा करके आपके कांग्रेस चलाने वाले सरकार कर्नाटका के अलावा तेलंगाना में है, ये उधर इंप्लीमेंट करके दिखाओ भाई। हिमाचल में है, उधर भी इंप्लीमेंट करके दिखाओ। जहां सरकार में है उधर कोई काम नहीं आ रहा इसका, मगर दूसरे के ऊपर आरोप करो मेरा कॉपी पेस्ट स्टिक किया। मैं चैलेंज करती हूं, हिमाचल प्रदेश में छोटा राज्य है, तेलंगाना उससे बड़ा है, आप चूज करो भाई, तेलंगाना में इंप्लीमेंट करेंगे या हिमाचल में। ये घोषणा करना एक विषय है, इंप्लीमेंटेशन के समय कांग्रेस पीछे हट जाती।
इंप्लीमेंटेशन अनदर स्टोरी, लेकिन आइडिया उनका है, ये आप मान
नहीं, मैं वो भी नहीं मानने को तैयार हूं। मैं बोल रही हूं हमारी स्कीम कंप्लीटली वेल थॉट थ्रू है और इसमें कोई प्राइवेट सेक्टर में डाल दिया, हक बना दिया अप्रेंटिसशिप को, है ना। मैं बात कर रही हूं इंडस्ट्री के ऊपर हक बना करके आप लोगों को बेच करके उस इंडस्ट्री में काम करने वाले के साथ रखने के लिए आप ले आ रहे हैं। क्या इंडस्ट्री के साथ बात हो गया है? मेरे से आज पूछ रहे हैं कि इंप्लीमेंटेशन इसमें कैसे है, इंडस्ट्री के ऊपर आप इंपोज करेंगे, इंट्रूड करेंगे इंडस्ट्री के HR प्लान के साथ। ऐसे सब प्रश्न आज मेरे से पूछा जा रहा, मैं कांग्रेस से पूछ रही हूं। हक बनाने वाले अप्रेंटिसशिप को क्या इंडस्ट्री से बात हो गया है? कॉपी कट स्टिक पेस्ट का ये नहीं है कि आप कुछ भी कह दो। इस बार कांग्रेस के मेथोडोलॉजी हैज बीन बेसलेस चार्जेस, आरोप और कैंपेन के लिए नैरेटिव जिसको गलत है, मतलब उसका बेसलेस आरोप है, बेबुनियाद आरोप है, इसको साबित करने के लिए आप पीछे होते जाओ, फिर बोलो अरे आप तो सरकार में है, आप क्यों डिफेंसिव बन रहे हैं। अरे ये बयानबाजी और अग्रेसिव तरीके से बात करने में कोई झूठ सच्चा नहीं होगा, मगर कांग्रेस वो प्रयत्न करने के रास्ते पे चल।
But then let me ask you, this has impacted you in the recent elections. Both the issues that you picked up, whether it was changing of the constitution or the reservation issue, इन दोनों इश्यूज पे नैरेटिव कांग्रेस का जीता है, विच मीन्स आपके नैरेटिव में यानी कि बीजेपी के नैरेटिव में, सरकार के नैरेटिव में कहीं ना कहीं कोई कमी रही, ये तो आप मानेंगे।
मैं ये मानती हूं कि कांग्रेस अपप्रचार कर रहा था, एक जिम्मेदाराना पार्टी, और अभी इस चुनाव के नतीजा को तो आप भी समझते हैं कि सरकार इलेक्ट करने के समय ऑपोजिशन का भी इलेक्शन हुआ, ये मैं मानती हूं। पार्टी 99 सीट 50 के अबाव से 99 तक पहुंचे, मगर 100 पार नहीं हुए। आपको एक रिस्पॉन्सिबल ऑपोजिशन के रोल प्ले करने के लिए जनता ने वोट देकर आपको 99 के साथ भेजा है। 99 के साथ रिस्पॉन्सिबल ऑपोजिशन कैसे होना, इसके ऊपर भी सोचना आवश्यक है।
So let me ask you, मिडिल क्लास, इस बजट में मिडिल क्लास को आपने लगभग 17,500 रुपीज का एक रिलैक्सेशन दिया बाय रेजिंग द एग्जेम्पशन लिमिट। ग्रेट। हाउ मच डज दैट वर्क आउट टू? मैं आपको बताऊं, पर मंथ एक मिडिल क्लास के घर में 1,458 रुपीज बचते हैं। आपको लगता है कि इस 1,500 रुपए से कम की जो बचत हुई उससे मिडिल क्लास घर में कोई खास फर्क पड़ेगा?
Navika, I respect this issue of middle class should be given some rahat. How much ever I wish to give, I love to give more. But after a point, it's also, particularly when it comes to tax-related issue. That is why, to make a difference to the salaried people, I made sure that the standard deduction will go up from 50,000 to 75,000. Once the tax rates are also being changed, that will benefit even the higher tax payers Because for every 1 lakh, first 1 lakh, first 5 lakh, first 10 lakh, first 15 lakh, the kind of benefit that will benefit even the higher income groups. So, first of all, our intention to give something to the middle class salaried people, I increase this standard deduction. I can do more, I wish to do more, but there are limitations in taxation. How much more can I give is a question that I have to look at. So ideally, yes, I love to give more, but there are limitations. And I have to consider there are limitations. That's why affordable housing, I'm giving some kind of a benefit and subsidized interest. I'm also making sure that student loans for students who are going to study in Indian universities is up to 10 lakhs, and on that also a subsidized interest will be given for families to pick up for children's education. So there are various ways in which we are
when papers are leaking all over the place.
Well, that has clearly been taken up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has come out with, having looked at the case, its judgment. I think we should learn to judge, learn to respect the judgment which has come from the Supreme Court.
निर्मला जी, आपने कहा मिडिल क्लास को मैं ज्यादा देना चाहती हूँ, लेकिन सवाल लोग ये करते हैं कि इस देश की 140 करोड़ की आबादी, उसमें से 7 करोड़ लोग इनकम टैक्स के नेट में आते हैं, जिसमें से 5 करोड़ लगभग, शायद उससे कुछ ज्यादा ही, सिर्फ रिटर्न फाइल करते हैं, टैक्स नहीं देते। यानी कि पूरे देश के 140 करोड़ लोगों के बिहाफ पर अगर कोई टैक्स दे रहा है तो वो 2 करोड़, लगभग 2 करोड़, शायद उससे कम लोग। क्या उनकी गलती यही है कि वो सैलरीड है, उनके पास कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है, उनका तो जो टैक्स है वो टीडीएस पे कटता है? और एक मीम जो मुझे दिखा, जो मुझे बहुत लगता है कि हर मिडिल क्लास घर में, और ये अगर मैं आपको दिखाऊं तो इसमें, आई डोंट नो आपने देखा कि नहीं सोशल मीडिया में, वो कह रहा है ये तनख्वाह आती है, तनख्वाह में से आप पहले तो 30% डायरेक्ट टैक्स दे देते हैं और बाकी का आप क्या करेंगे, आप जो खर्च करते हैं उसमें आप अगर ऑर्डिनरी चीजों पे खर्च करते हैं तो आपको 12% का जीएसटी लगता है, थोड़ी सी महंगी चीजों पर करते हैं तो 18%, और लग्जरी गुड्स थोड़े बहुत खरीदने का अगर आपका शौक है तो वो 28%। तो ये सैलरी यहां चली जाती है, और यहां पर आप जो इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो अगर आपके लॉसेस होते हैं तो सरकार आपको कुछ नहीं कहती, लेकिन अगर आपको फायदा होता है तो आप 20% टैक्स दे दीजिए यहां पर, या 12.5% जो आपने लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन्स टैक्स लगा दिया है। तो सैलरीड वाला, खास करके प्राइवेट सेक्टर में जो सैलरीड इंसान होता है, उसके पास कोई सोशल सिक्योरिटी नहीं है, उसके पास कोई पेंशन नहीं है, वो सरकारी नौकर नहीं है, उनका कौन सा बेनिफिट है जिस पर टैक्स नहीं लगता? ये सवाल जनता पूछ रही है, मिडिल क्लास के लोग पूछ रहे हैं।
हम टैक्स रेट कम करने के लिए हर कोशिश करें। दैट इज व्हाई वी ब्रॉट इन द न्यू टैक्स regime, the alternative new regime, which has far lesser rate compared to the old regime. The old regime has a lot of exemptions and so on. Many people said we don't need the exemptions, so we brought that. That's one. We tried to reduce and simplify the taxation entire system and regime itself. And it's difficult to convey this, and I don't know how I'm going to do this without causing this outrage about, how dare the finance minister say this. But let us, matter of fact, please allow me this indulgence. Is GST tax on the essentials, was it brought in only by GST? When they taxed under the earlier pre-GST regime in every state through VAT or through excise? Don't tax, great principle. Great principle. Don't tax at all. But to say that it is GST which brought it on my soap and oil, my comb, with due respect, yeah, whether you want to accept it or not, even I come from a middle class family which lived on salaries. Do you think I'm here now doing things which I don't understand? With due respects, GST on daily use items, every state was doing its own earlier. That's been brought together so that it becomes simple and one all over the country. In some states, buying a car was cheaper, and some other state it was more expensive. So in order to get the entire country to deal with it in one fashion, there was a GST council formed and rates have been decided. Now, the ministers who sit in the GST council spend a lot of time understanding this and represent the people. All of us speak for the people. And therefore, to think that before GST all these were free, whereas now it has been taxed, no. But I can for sure say, after the GST, the tax rate on all of them has come down. I've released n number of data to show that the ordinary daily use common man items have been brought down in tax after the introduction of GST. Let's give credit where it is due.
तो अखिलेश यादव जब कहते हैं कि 12 लाख एनुअल इनकम तक के लोगों को आप बिल्कुल टैक्स फ्री कर दीजिए क्योंकि उनके हाथ में ज्यादा पैसे होंगे तो वो ज्यादा चीजें खरीदेंगे, आपको तो जीएसटी में फिर भी टैक्स मिलेगा. Is he oversimplifying?
Well, everybody has their own view on how to handle tax and tax-related matters. Samajwadi Party was a very strong member in some of the earlier UPA governments. I wished finance ministers had taken his advice then.
So this is about political one-upmanship.
I don't look at it. In fact, honestly, I feel there are some items and some issues on which political parties will have to come together. And I will list them out.
Can you see that happening with the kind of confrontation that we see every day in Parliament, in the rhetoric during elections? Do you see any consensus building, taking the country forward kind of activity? Because many political parties are deciding not even to participate in the Niti Aayog meeting on 27th. Mamata Banerjee is going to come because she wants to fight with the central government क्योंकि आप उनको पैसे नहीं दे रहे.
With due respect, I admit that is a good position to take. Because Niti Aayog like forum, where the Prime Minister is the chair, is a very good forum to come and speak about the issues that you think are important for the state. It is a good forum. And I think opposition, by taking this kind of a position, is actually losing an opportunity. They should come to the Niti Aayog and say, look, my state is getting this much, it should get this much. These are the projects which need funding, and speak up. Don't you want to use that opportunity? I would honestly want states to participate in it and speak about their issues.
But Nirmala ji, most opposition parties have protested outside Parliament today, saying that your budget was a kursi bachao budget because you announced schemes for Andhra Pradesh, you announced schemes for Bihar, there was no mention of any other state. You even had a little bit of a confrontation in Rajya Sabha with the leader of opposition, Mallikarjun Kharge. But do you really believe this is a kursi bachao? Because now you cannot do without the numbers of the TDP and the JDU, which is why you've announced this. And even if you say कि बाकी states के लिए है, you didn't even take their name. The fact that you took only these two names clearly was a political message.
I took Himachal Pradesh's name.
In flood control. Yes. In flood control, yes. The announcement that you made.
I took Assam's name. I took Sikkim's name. So I have taken other states' names. It's not as if I've named only two. And I also repeat the point that I said in the Rajya Sabha. I want to challenge the Congress party on each of their budgets that they have spoken. If they had not mentioned the name of any one state in it, did it mean that they didn't want to give money for that state? Can I conclude like that? It means from the way in which they seem to be behaving today, that's what it implies, whereas I didn't imply that. I will still have money going to states who have not named in my budget. I will still have projects undertaken in those states. I will still have centrally sponsored schemes happening in those states. So I will still look at ADB or World Bank functioning, support coming in, financial support coming in as loans to fund projects in those states. But does it mean, because of the way in which the Congress party has interpreted it today and walked out during the zero-hour discussion in the morning, does it mean that in their budget, if they didn't mention the name of one state, they stopped the money going to that state? I'd like to challenge. I would like to pick up on those budgets. In fact, let me tell you, today somebody who has read Indian budgets as a matter of hobby every year gave me this news that, once an alliance partner left the alliance, they dropped mention about that state totally during their alliance days. Those kind of tricks maybe they play. We don't play those games. Take the budget documents which go along with my speech. Whether I mention it in my speech or not, the documents will show by scheme what monies go under each scheme to which state. Every state has it. Every state gets projects funded and monies go, whether I mention them in the speech or not. And that's why I took the example of Maharashtra, where a big project, a seaport, which actually this country deserved to have for the last 70 years. One of the biggest projects and the best draft is in that port. It should have been built 70 years ago. India would have had great advantage. Vadhavan port in Maharashtra. Did I mention it in my vote on account? Or did I mention it now? I didn't in either of them. But the cabinet has given an approval to build one of the biggest port for India in Vadhavan, 76,000 crores. You can always say, now, you didn't mention, but did money get stopped?
That's an election-bound state. So I will again be political and say कि महाराष्ट्र को आपने दिए क्योंकि वहाँ election है.
Have your team to look into the budget documents and tell me which state has been ignored.
Tamil Nadu says they've been ignored. West Bengal says they've been ignored. Telangana says they've been ignored. Karnataka says they've been ignored. Especially the Karnataka chief minister has even said that you come to the Rajya Sabha from Karnataka and you've got nothing for Karnataka in your budget.
I would want each of them to please look into the budget documents and see if there is anything made as provision for those states or not. I think they're just being unfair in misleading and putting forth a misleading argument or a narrative and confusing the people. A responsible opposition. I recall my words. This election has seen people of India elect a government as much as elect an opposition. An opposition which has been given above 50, which was the earlier position, 99 seats, to be a responsible opposition. But what they are doing today, by doing all these baseless arguments and putting forth unsubstantiated allegations, they're doing a disfavor.
Why do you think they're targeting you? Is it you or your party?
Me. It is targeting this government. And why do they do it? They just don't like Prime Minister Modi. It's a visceral hatred. And therefore, anything that he does for this country is unacceptable for them. There cannot be a greater petty-minded opposition than what the Congress is. It's a sad state. I wish the party rises from that kind of a pettiness. But maybe a bit too much to expect, because let me recall, when Congress was in power, the pettiness was shown against a state, Gujarat, and against the chief minister of that state, Gujarat, and the central agencies were used to undermine the chief minister, undermine every minister there. It is that attitude which continues even today, in spite of people punishing them with 55 seats last time.
So then is it payback time when ED and CBI go after the opposition?
We have stated it publicly. that our fight is against corruption in this country and we'll go after black money wherever it is. And therefore they are out there doing their job. We have not made them a caged parrot like the way CBI's chief during UPA's time commented about himself.
But the washing machine perception hurt you in election.
That's a different story. Anything can hurt anybody in elections. I'm not going to go by it. But is it not true that the black money, fight against black money is being taken up by the agencies under this government because they've been given the freedom to do what is lawfully got to be done?
But that's again, takes me back to all the comments on social media which says, आप ही ने प्रॉमिस किया था आप काला धन लाएंगे और सैलरीड क्लास को ऑनर करेंगे because they are the real patriots. And what have they got? They've got an increase in long-term capital gains tax, which has gone up from 10% to 12.5%, which means anybody who invests in the market, and you know there are a lot of retail investors in the market who invest in mutual funds, उनके टैक्स बढ़ गए, उनके पास पेंशन का कवर नहीं है, उनको आयुष्मान भारत नहीं मिलता, उनको गरीब कल्याण योजना नहीं मिलता, उनके बच्चों को आप लोन में भी सबवेंशन नहीं देंगे, लेकिन उनका टैक्स बढ़ गया. और दूसरी तरफ लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन्स टैक्स हैज आल्सो come down from 20% to 12.5% in the assets segment, but indexation has been taken away. Now, your party can joke about the fact that everybody is an indexation expert, but in some cases, that tax, in some cases, will hit people selling in the short run.
Navika, I'm sorry, I don't know whoever informs you on this long-term capital gains tax and the measures that we've taken. In fact, since last night, the CBDT has been putting out, and even now as I've come for this interview, there is a frequently asked questions section, yes. FAQs, which the CBDT has put out, explaining in detail. It's differently, I think. Explaining in detail as to why this has been made. Yesterday in the press conference, the Revenue Secretary neatly explained as to how 1.25 lakh has been exempted annually for the smaller investors in the market. They are not subject to 1.25 lakh is not subject to the tax. So keeping in mind the small investors, we've given that exemption. But as Revenue Secretary rightly explained, majority of them who are earning big amounts out of it are the ones who will be paying 12.5 rather than 10 now. And the indexation removal has been explained very clearly with case instances. So many cases have been shown as those which we studied before we brought this, so that people will pay lesser than what they have been paying even with indexation. What they're going to pay at 12.5 is lesser than even what they have paid if the indexation were to be there. So enough work was done in consultation with people who advise us on these matters, and it has not been brought in thoughtlessly. And today and since last night, the kind of explanations that we are giving to dispel all these quick fix answers people have given, which are not right. I would want everybody to please go through the explanations, the clarifications, the FAQ, which the Income Tax Department, the CBDT, has put out. Then you'll know that it is certainly not going to hurt most people. There can be some who are, getting that benefit at a higher level, but certainly not the middle class, certainly not the poor, small retail investors. I can assure you on that. Enough and more work was done with instances of what if the price is now here, what it was purchased so and so year. We've done all that and we've put it all out.
So you're
kindly have a look at it.
I looked at it.
It was done. Let me assure you with this one line. It was not done for revenue considerations. It was more an exercise to simplify the entire long-term capital gains and also to make sure all asset classes are treated similarly.
So you're saying there's no relook that you're planning on this issue?
It is now a property of the parliament. I can't comment on it beyond this.
Because there are some people who have said that while you're treating, the appreciation, there is no indexation on the basis of the real value because inflation hasn't been taken into account in the period that an asset was bought and when it is being valued today.
Getting a sale.
Getting a sale today. Number one, the issue of inflation has not been looked at. And the second, the cost of money, which means most people who are buying assets like a home or something will take a loan and there is an interest burden that they will carry. Some of those people, and they might not be the super rich in the highest tax bracket, have put this out. I'm only bringing to you Sawal Public Ka.
Absolutely no harm in asking, and I'm willing to answer every question. Sawal Public Ka. And my answer is also for the public, and I appreciate you asking it. But I'm saying please go back to look at the FAQs and the issues which have been given clarity through the CBDT.
Well, so let me also ask you, Mr. Chidambaram, your predecessor in this very building, North Block, says that you're very happy. He's very happy that you were reading his and his party's manifesto, where you picked up the ELI, the internship. On the internship issue, and he says angel tax that was removed was also their idea in the manifesto. Really, were there some efforts made to look at other people's manifestos, other parties' manifestos before the BJP finalized its own policy?
I would want to first of all remind that it was the Congress party which brought in the angel tax in the first place. That was in 2012. And they were there in power for 2 years after that. This removal which we are doing now, they should have removed it much before they went away. So it's very nice for the Congress party to remind me saying, we said that this should be removed. So in fact, there was a tweet, I think, saying it's an exploitative tax, it should be removed. My question is, who brought the exploitative tax in the first place? Who brought it in? Congress party. Before 14, you could have removed it before you went away. Why didn't you? And in the 10 years, we have tried eliminating all kinds of weeds, poisonous weeds, which were part of this.
It took you 10 years?
Yes, systematically we've removed this, the startups from it. We last year brought in an amendment to make sure that parity is brought between the way in which the investors, domestic investors, NRI, are treated similarly. So we tried making it less toxic, if I may use that word. Then, after a lot of discussions, since we understood in the sense that this serves no additional purpose if really black money has to be curtailed, for which it was brought in. We have the PMLA, we have the Black Money Act, and particularly because Black Money Act post 2015 brought in by this government are all there, we will use them. And therefore we've removed this. Congress party which brought it in, Congress party which lived with it for 2 years, and Congress party which typically calls its own law exploitative today's. They should actually congratulate us for having removed what they brought in, a toxic thing into the system. They brought in this toxicity.
So let me ask you, on your internship scheme, which also they say that was their original idea, you said 1 crore people will be given these internships in 500 odd companies. Now, if I do the math, over 5 years, it means 20,000 people in every company of the 500, if all 500 are doing at the same level, which means 4,000 of these interns will go per company. Do you think companies have the kind of wherewithal to just have internships of 4,000 within their existing setups every single year? Number one.
We are paying for them, Navika. Government is giving 5,000 rupees per month for them and 6,000 rupees at the beginning as one-time payment. And for the 12 months, therefore, the payment is coming from us, one. So for them to host somebody who's going to be an intern for whose payment is being given by the government of India, I'm not saying, oh, it's an easy adjustment. Companies will be nudged to do this because it is these companies which often tell us that they are not able to get employable skilled people, industry ready qualified people. So by this exercise, we hope companies are able to also see that this internship gives them the understanding of that kind of requirement, and therefore they will be better ready for industry. One. And I'm saying this in the context, is this, you may ask me.
4,000 people in a building.
Yes, no, a company is not just one building. There are several units of a company, branches of a company. They have different, establishments for different purposes. So I don't think it is that simple. But then the question is, haven't we heard in the recent past, and when I say recent past, not months, just recently, one top company's CEO saying 45,000 jobs are lying vacant because they are not able to get. And who is this company? If I can take the name, L&T. 45,000, and they are not able to find the right kind of people. And I won't blame the company. Maybe that's a reality. Therefore, what we need to do is to give the young people that exposure. 1 year in the shop floor as an intern, when he gets out and puts that in his CV, there can be many other companies who look for such people to recruit. So I expect a lot of positivity from this scheme, and companies will realize that that is eventually going to give them a bankable pool of people with that kind of an exposure. So I think companies will come out favorably.
The opposition says jobs is what the youth of India wants, and what you're giving them is a temporary placement to buy peace.
And that's why they said it is a right. Internship is a right. We'll have to give it. They said it in their manifesto. So if you think it is not a placement, why did you have to give it as a right to them? So you were cheating, were you not? Congress party, you were cheating people, were you misleading them, right?
But then the comeback...
What we are giving is, as a part of 5 sets of things we want to give the youth, 3 of them are going towards jobs creation, freshers, second time entering into job, and helping both the employee and the employer. 3 out of our 5 scheme package are for jobs.
So you do recognize that jobs are a problem. You do recognize that during the elections, unemployment, which was the big issue, which the BJP was in denial of, is now the central theme of your budget.
Navika, you may want to put it in any fashion. 1 year of giving appointment letters by the Prime Minister in government jobs, in central government jobs. 1 year. From 22 November to 23 November. PM himself in Rozgar Melas gave appointment letters. Is that not giving jobs?
How many?
So that is what. You can always keep shifting the mileposts and say, oh, the Congress said this, I'm asking you this question. So which makes very good eyeballs rolling at times.
I'm doing my job.
All right.
I'm doing my job as a journalist.
Immediately you will give me that response. So don't shoot the messenger. You have stock lines in media.
No, I mean, you do too. Most politicians do.
I will want to tell you this. So when you tell us you were in denial, no way. We were giving jobs. Where's the denial?
So the RBI study which has been spoken about says that 4.7 crore jobs were given in just 1 year, 23 to 24. Obviously, if that was the situation, and that report is challenged by other reports from Citibank that have come in, and people question these numbers. My question to you is, when will we have authenticated data that we can rely on that gives us the real picture?
The periodic labor force data has started coming from the government. I think the last 2 years we are regularly bringing this, and it gives a clear picture of jobs. And also the EPFO data, which is available again, which is a very reliable source from the job place itself where the worker goes. So there are data. There can be more, no doubt. But it is not as if there's no data at all. And every time we are looking at formal jobs, let's also remember it is in this country in the last 5 years, because of the rapid rate at which digitalization has happened, there is a higher level of formalization. Many workers from the informal sector are getting into the formal as well. Lots of changes are happening, and therefore at the moment data is coming through from from the banks which have lent to them for being self-employed. And when we talk about that, immediately you have a mocking tone coming from the Congress saying, oh, you want everybody to make pakodes. No, every self-employed man does it with pride. So when Mudra loan is given, when PM Swanidhi loan is given, when PM Vishwakarma helps self-employed people who are working with their hands, with minor tools in their hands, these are all aimed at self-employment. They have to also be counted gradually. So jobs are happening. But
just not in the formal sector.
Also in the formal sector, but many out there in the informal sector. So we need to have a way in which we are able to count them. At the moment we get the figures from the banks as to how many people have taken this loan, so they're running their own business, maybe they have one fellow to help them and so on. There are very many different ways. Startups, unicorns, when did they happen? They're all self-employed. Are they not employing people with them? Are we counting them or not?
Okay, so let me then tell you, not only Mr. Chidambaram, Mr. Karti Chidambaram also has a point of view. He says your long-term capital gains tax without the indexation is actually an inheritance tax. If that's true, then Sam Pitroda, who you and your party opposed so much, that tax has also been adopted into this. Is Karti Chidambaram right?
How will it be an inheritance tax if it is a property that you bought and you're selling it? If you bought it, there can be a rare occasion of somebody who inherited a property and who's selling it, and therefore you can count it as an inheritance tax. But how will it be? Most of these people who spend their own money buy a property and they also sell it. Is that inheritance? How will that get classified under?
Yeah, but earlier indexation had a cutoff date of 2001. So, you know, many people, their parents also give them homes.
Okay, you want to go on proving the Congress right? Please try. But I will not concede on this because we brought it in from the point of view of simplifying and not for revenue considerations. Now, when we tax people who are earning a high amount out of capital gains, having given exemption for 1.25 lakh for lower level investments, you think that we are doing a wrong thing. Then why was a inheritance tax and redistribution tax actually actively campaigned by the Congress party? You want the big money earners also to pay for the country. And when we do it, but when we do it in this way, you want to accuse us of, you know, this is inheritance tax. Amazing. Everything will be in their terminology. And they will want to constantly say either it's my idea or it is wrong to do it, but not give the credit to Prime Minister Modi because, no, you don't like him.
So let me ask you, as far as reforms are concerned, disinvestments, shying away from disinvestments, 60,000 crore was your target previously. You brought it down to 50,000 crore, and even what was the target has not been achieved. In fact, it's only 50% achieved at this point. Do you think somewhere or the other we are losing focus on reforms?
No. Otherwise, even in this budget, I wouldn't have given so many things about reforms. Land, factor reforms have all been defined in this budget. Disinvestment is not a process which I got a cabinet approval, so I want to sell this today, I will sell it. No, it requires a lot of preparatory work. Many of our PSUs are now being professionally run, and therefore their valuations are all going up. But I'll have to find my best time to disinvest them. And that best time depends on so many different factors. The company's own readiness to meet the challenges of a market are not simple tasks. They consume time. But we will honor the cabinet approval decisions.
You've also cut the tax rates for foreign companies investing in India from 40% to 35%. Is this because FDI, people say, has been falling, and FDI falling and the percentage of the GDP is an area of worry? Do you think this tax cut alone can once again give...
It wasn't aimed at that, nor is it expecting a huge flow because of that. FDI come into this country in various different forms, in the sense various different sources invest in India. And we've kept a policy which is favoring FDI because we think India is the place for manufacturing now, and investments should happen in this country. Therefore, the policy, FDI policy, is something which has been every year bettered and improved upon. We are now looking at investments coming for labor-intensive sectors as well.
So, but FDI stood at almost $14.5 billion in April 23 to February 24 period. It's down from that level. It's down to that level from $26.7 billion. That's a sharp fall in FDI.
FDIs also move based on many other external considerations. Doesn't move just on India's own policy or India's own situation, global situation.
But we wanted to be the alternative to China. How far are we from that target?
We are still working towards it. That's why you have this growth. You think this growth can be otherwise achieved?
Growth in the economy, but there's no growth in the FDI. And how will we become an alternative to China unless FDI increases?
Today, domestic investments are also happening in a big way, and we want to recognize that or not. You quote me the FDI numbers, I also tell you about the investments within the country, the retail participation in the stock market. Are these not factors which will promote investment within this country? The JP Morgan index, through which natural flow of investment funds are happening almost like clockwork. These are also important things, developments which we need to take into consideration.
Let me then ask about
Morgan Stanley.
Okay. Let me also ask you about subsidies. Subsidies as a percentage of GDP have been coming down since 2020, which was the peak COVID period. Down to a level of 1.31% of the GDP in 24-25. Food and fertilizer subsidies have gone down while petroleum subsidies have gone up. Is this a policy shift? Because food and fertilizers often were the larger part of the subsidies. We are back to subsidizing petroleum.
Food subsidy is so many different ways, right? You procure MSP, your free food grains. They're all happening. So there is no way in which we are cutting down. There can be small changes here or there, but main schemes are all intact. We are still giving subsidy for fertilizer to the farmers. We have not reduced that. But that rise in the fertilizer price which happened post-2020 is not the rise now. So we don't need to pay that much for a price which has come down.
So you're making a saving there?
Yes.
So it's not the quantum of subsidy, it's the value at which imports were being done.
Imports were happening. There was a time when it went skyrocketing. I would have compared it for the per bag price which a farmer pays and the actual per bag cost with which we are importing. So these differences also have to be taken on board before thinking that every reduction means the end beneficiary is paying more from his pocket and the subsidy has been cut.
Rahul Gandhi is trying to get, or rather using his offices to get a lot of sympathy from farmers, and today he met in Parliament farmer leaders to discuss legal guarantees for MSP. Do you think once again the farmers' issue is going to put the BJP on the back foot?
No, I first of all would want to say, take for example, the MS Swaminathan report. When was it submitted? During that period, who was in government? And how long they sat over it? Today they are showing sympathy for farmers. Today they are saying, are you giving as per MS Swaminathan report? I want to ask the Congress, is there no end to your hypocrisy? This MS Swaminathan report was with you in your UPA days. Are you sincerely wanting farmers to be better off? Why couldn't you give it at that time? You sat over that report.
But that was then. This is now.
You can always say all this, Navika, and you can always say, I'm asking on behalf of the people. Please ask the Congress party this question. Now you're standing next to the farmers and asking this question. Very well, do it. You're in the opposition. But I want to ask them, and I wish media asks them. MS Swaminathan report was very much in their hands for more than a couple of years. No sympathy at that time to the farmers.
You explained to the people that emergency was brought by them, yet their narrative that BJP wants 400 seats because they want to change the constitution, that narrative gained some momentum on the ground.
I'm asking, what did the media do about it?
It's not my job. You are fighting elections with the opposition parties. How is the media supposed to get into it?
Of course, media cannot do anything. I agree.
So, on the farmers' issue,
I'm giving you an answer on the farmers' issue. You come back to me to ask the same question again and again. Please do ask the Congress party.
Okay. The last
MS Swaminathan is being raised by the Congress party members even today. Look at the temerity. That report was submitted to their government. They have not done a damn about it then. But today, oh, you're not giving MS Swaminathan. Amazing audacity, I would say.
So, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, the one very popular scheme that was promised was the Ayushman Bharat coverage to people above the age of 70 years. The provision that has been made by you in the budget has only been revised by about 500 crores for the health department. Do you think you'll be able to, roll out this scheme because that will require 4,000, 5,000 crores? Do you think that's going to be rolled out in this year and the promise will be kept up?
I'll have to talk it out with the health ministry to see how they're going to take it up.
But no. So you've not provisioned it, but
there are several times, for instance, go to looking at Manrega. It's a demand-based. As and when the demand comes from the department, we certainly give it. It's not as if I park the funds ready sitting there. Even at the BE stage, as the year passes by, we'll add. Nobody is denied money once it's made in the budget. The moment the department places that, we'll always...
So you'll divert money from somewhere to somewhere else?
It's not diversion. We have made a provision, we will give it. Or else I'll go to the supplementary demand for grants during the next session of Parliament and take it from there.
So Nirmala Sitharaman, the message of this budget, how would you explain to the people of India, the youth of India and industries, India Inc., in terms of giving the growth message? How would you define it for these three groups?
No, I very clearly, for three groups: industry, youth,
and the common man on the road.
Youth, the kind of jobs and the skilling and the internships that we've offered, for which government has shown an outlay per person, is something which we are serious about, and we will do it to benefit the 4.1 crore that we've spoken about. In the youth, common people are also there. Families are also common people's families whose youth benefit from it. We are giving affordable housing. We are building 3 crore more houses under PM Awas Yojana. PM Sadak, Gram Sadak Yojana will link better Gaon. Tribal people in 63,000 tribal villages will be getting basic amenities for them. They are also common people. We are reaching out to them. We are giving PM Adivasi Unnat Gram Yojana to them. So, common people have so many different schemes through which we are reaching. What is Lakpati Didi? What is Drone Didi? They're all people in the villages, women in the villages. 3 lakh crore for women, women-led development. Poshan Abhiyan, for ordinary women in the villages. These are all schemes which are benefiting the common man, aren't they? And look at the student loan which we offered, saying 10 lakh you can take at discounted subsidized rate for your students, for your children who want to study higher education in India's own universities. We are extending that, aren't we?
Well, you're extremely feisty when you defend your turf, and you're extremely aggressive. And women being aggressive, I think, is great, because you can't do your job unless you are aggressive. People walk all over you. But I want to also test your sense of humor. And there's this meme, some picture of you floating around. Have you seen this one? And this one carries a caption, "Tax nahi dena hai to kam kamao." What would Nirmala Sitharaman today say about?
I'll just laugh at it.
You laugh?
Because it was a halwa ceremony, and there was a situation that was probably last year or the year before. And I just said, that's it, and somebody took a picture and it's out. People are using it to entertain themselves.
Do you find humor when you see these memes? Do you laugh over it, or does it bother you?
No, I laugh at many of them. But when it is accompanied with toxic language, sometimes I wonder, where does this toxicity come from? Everybody does their bit. I'm doing my bit. But never mind. If it entertains people, please let it go on.
Well, on that note, for being feisty, for being the finance minister for 7 years, for taking it on the chin and still maintaining a sense of humor, Nirmala Sitharaman, thank you very much for joining me on Frankly Speaking, and I do congratulate you.
Thank you very much, Navika.
For doing such a tremendous job.
Thank you very much.